Hey, what's up guys? JB here, and today's video is very special. Final Fantasy VI, my absolute favorite childhood game, is finally coming to War of the Visions. Now first of all, if you've never played Final Fantasy VI, I highly recommend that you check out the remaster that came out recently. The remastered soundtrack that I'm going to be featuring in today's video is absolutely stunning, and I think they did a great job on the Pixel remaster. So this is going to be part one of a three-part series that I'm planning on this collaboration. I really wanted to dive deep into each one of these units, look closely at all of their strengths and weaknesses, and of course, in this first episode, we're looking at none other than Locke Cole. This guy is a treasure hunter, not a thief. He's one of the first characters that you get introduced to in Final Fantasy VI. He's definitely always been one of my favorites. The amazing thing is that everybody actually gets this unit for free for logging in during the collaboration, and honestly, I couldn't be more happy about that, because I would have spent 42k on this guy without a doubt. So let's get into it here, and first let's start with Locke's TMR. This provides two casts of a very nice evade-focused party buff, giving both 20% luck and 20% agility. Now, it will take your armor slot in order to equip this, similar to Luel's TMR. In today's game, that may be something that you're not willing to give up with items like the Winter's Clothes or the Black Garb. However, with the second anniversary coming in, we do get access to the Trust Stone system, and this TMR with its 15 flat evade that it starts with, once it's imbued with Trust Stones, can actually transform into one of the best evade pieces in the game. So definitely a high-end TMR here. Now looking at Locke's stats, his luck and agility are huge standouts, ranking him amongst the top class in both of those categories, and setting him up to be a top-tier evade unit. And within his mastery, he does actually get an additional 5 flat evade on top of that as well. Now also jumping out here is this very high attack total at 591, almost reaching that 600 plateau. And that actually sets him up to be top 3 in global today. That just puts him in a great position to be a very high damage physical slash unit. For his resistances, he has strengths here for both slash and missile damage, with 10% for slash and a quite nice 15% for missile. If you're able to build upon those values a bit through gear or espers or cards, it should actually allow him to take a hit from these damage types without going down. For ailment resistances, he has two nice ones here in Charm, which is great for live PvP, especially on an evade unit. He also has 50% resist to poison, great against a unit like More the Merrier, and more units actually coming out in the future, such as Sweetheart Ildira. He also does have increased jump here with jump 3, which allows him better mobility on height disparate maps. On the more negative side, you can see his HP pool here is not even reaching 3100. His dex is also on the lower side, coming in at just 210. Now interestingly, I did find that his AP and TP values are also quite low amongst his peers, with most UR physical damage based units generally being in the 130 range or higher for those categories. Now, I don't really think this will end up being a huge issue for him in practice, at least in PvP, where battles tend to be very short-lived, but just something that I wanted to note. Now, lastly, his only negative damage resist here is for magic attacks, coming in at -5. Definitely not the worst that I've ever seen, but it is something that we'll need to be wary of with Locke's low hit points and his lack of base spirit. Okay, so moving into Locke's passive encounters, and we do actually have a couple of nice build options here. First would be an evade build, using both of his main jump passives. First one for that increased movement and agility, and the second one for that defense pen and the flat 12 evasion. Now, including his mastery that we mentioned, that would get him to 17 flat evasion before getting into gearing or buffs. Another option would be his pugilist and nightblade passives, and this would be more of like a high accuracy build. This would get him up to 45 passive accuracy. Now, combined with his high raw luck, would actually put him as one of the most accurate units in global today. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. I do actually think this is a great option to have for him, but also a much more risky play due to the general lack of range that we'll look at in Locke's skills, which could potentially put him in the line of fire, and without that evade to fall back on, it'd spell trouble. His last potential build would be more of like an all-out damage build, and for that you would use both of his attack up passives, or a combo of the attack up and defense penetration. And this build would be more useful for PvE scenarios where you're trying to cap your damage. In terms of his counters, at this point, we know Reflex is just amazing, so that's an always on for him. Okay, so special section here just to sort of prove out the viability of those builds that we were talking about and see where Locke stands amongst his competition when it comes to evade and accuracy. Now I've calculated out what those values would be for Locke, including his passives. And I have here as well in these tables some of the top UR units when it comes to evade and accuracy. Now basically how this works is you subtract the evade value from the accuracy value, and that represents your actual hit rate within the game. For the accuracy build that we were talking about with the 45 flat accuracy from passives, you can see that that build would actually put him as the most accurate unit to date in global amongst his UR competition. Now likewise, when we look at the evade side, Locke is on very solid footing there as well. His evade build will have him currently 5th best in global when it comes to raw evade ability, slotting him just behind Ketone. So both of these build options are very high end and put him amongst the top class when comparing him to his UR peers here. Okay, so moving on to Locke's unique job. And this job actually does bring some nice utility along with it. So let's look at his buffs here first. His party buff here brings some nice defensive utility, providing 15 single target resistance to the party. It's also giving a 50% counter chance down. And this is a new mechanic for War of the Visions starting with Locke. And we're going to be starting to see it more often as more units start coming in. But essentially this is just another way to defeat counters from going off against you that you would apply to all of your attacks while this buff is active. His next buff here is a self-only 40% attack, 25 evasion, so basically an amped up illusion that he casts on himself. His final buff here is a re-raise, so definitely fits right into that sort of toxic evade meta that we have going on. Oh, by the way, this re-raise also comes with a small AP restore as well, so definitely very strong here. And these latter two buffs are definitely very key ones in terms of Locke's survivability, and that re-raise in particular, you know, if he gets unlucky and takes a hit, he's going to have that chance to continue on and keep going. Okay, so moving on to Locke's attack skills. His first skill here is a range 3 single target physical barrier break. Now importantly, that barrier break comes before the damage hits, so it's essentially negating the barrier effect altogether. It carries a medium damage at a 165 mod, and it also decreases the target's attack by 43%. Now breaks are applied against the target's base stats, so unfortunately they don't really have a huge impact in PvP. It's only going to shave off a very small amount of damage, you know, in effect. His second skill is a range 3 with a +1 on the cross AoE, again coming in at a 165 mod. And this one has a very cool effect on it in that it steals 15 AP from the target and gives it to Locke. The skill itself is actually only a 23 AP cost as well when you factor in Locke's mastery of 15% decreased AP usage. So it makes it very easy for him to spam this attack and still maintain a decent amount of AP. Now this, along with his re-raise buff with that small AP restore, definitely makes Locke a very AP efficient unit and somebody that you can look to run without Ziza spells. His next ability is a range 3 single target dispel, this time with the large damage 200% mod. Definitely nice damage here on this one, and that dispel effect is really nice for any mode of play. In auto, you can strip a hate buff off of a tank, allowing follow-up attacks to be directed towards the back line of the enemy team. And of course, dispel has long been a favorite of manual play, knocking out any damage or mitigation buffs that the target may have built up before engaging. So very nice skill here. Now I'm also highlighting one skill here from his main job sub. And this one is essentially an upgraded steal time effect. And with Locke's version, it adds a chance to also slow the target in addition to cutting their CT by the 50%. Pretty nice skill here, I think, you know, when it's applicable. Now lastly, his limit break, and this is a definite highlight of his kit. It's Light's first 38% slash imperil. Now it is only single target, but Light as an element definitely has a lot of slash units that could take advantage of this. The imperil is hitting before the 200% damage of this attack, so it will be his hardest hitting skill as well, and it's going to do a ton of damage. As a secondary effect, it's also reducing the target's counter chance by 100% also before the damage. So definitely a great limit break here. It will have its uses in all modes of play. For setting up your damage chains in PvE trials or raids, you know, many of those trial bosses do have annoying counters that can go off, so being able to turn those off is a very nice quality of life. Aside from that though, this skill is also just going to be great for its damage potential and just being able to delete somebody off the battlefield. It's a great limit break here all around. Okay, so moving on to Locke's subjobs. I think in most scenarios you're going to want him on his Nightblade subjob, as I think he gets the 3 best skills from that class. For manual play, double resist and AP resorb have been longtime player favorites. You know, missile damage is something that's very common in class match play. And of course, being able to siphon out an opponent's AP can be a win condition in of itself. Drain Rush, on the other hand, is very good for any mode of play, really. Whether you're going for high scores on guild raids or trials, or in PvP to set up a chain for your teammates to cap on. Now, in terms of his Pugilist sub, a second damage type is definitely nice to have. But as we looked at in his skills, he does have that slash res and peril already to help him against highly resistant targets. So in my view, this pugilist sub is mostly going to be maybe a PvE sub job where you're specifically trying to target a strike weakness. None of the attacks in this sub job are really ideal for him because they are even shorter range than his main kit and expose him even more to AoE danger zones. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about building out Locke. And here is an evade build. I've paired him here with Elena. Now Light also has Rob for a lower cost evade option as well. And I've added Phoebe here for a lower cost option to fit into maybe like a 230 cost rule set. Now in a non-restricted environment, you could go crazy here and, put in a tank or, put in a high-end healer like a Yuna, for example. It all kind of depends what you're going for. Now you notice in the build here, I have 2 vision cards per unit, which is a feature getting introduced in the 2nd anniversary update. I did make a video about that recently, so if you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. I'll put a link above. Now I've tried as best as possible here to have all of the relevant evade stats equipped in both a primary and a secondary VC slot, just to take full advantage of the stacking on those effects. Now even though those stats are going to be reduced to like a 40 to 50% efficacy, the net effect is going to be a significant increase in the total evade compared to what we're used to today. And specifically when it comes to the evade versus accuracy battle, every single point that you can net in your evade is going to be significant. The other thing that you might notice that I've done here is Locke's weapon, and this is Vistral's TMR. And it's not something that's really seen much use in the game up until now. But pulling it up here, you can see the kind of stats that are going to be possible when we're allowed to slot high-level trust stones into it. And the reason for that is you can see it starts off with that 15 flat evade. And I've customized this piece to give him a number of stats, including both evade and offensive stats. So in effect, customizing this weapon to not only be one of the better evade items in the game, but also one of the better daggers in the game as well. And post 2nd anniversary, this is going to be the kind of thing that is possible and breathe new life into overlooked TMRs, specifically weapons, which, never really saw much use in the game up until now. Now, the nice thing in this setup is it would allow Locke to wear an evade armor piece and potentially even combo that with an accuracy ring as well. You could also opt for Locke's own TMR in that slot as well. It can definitely be enhanced in a similar way as we were just looking at with the dagger. So the world is really your oyster, when it comes to building out and customizing your teams with this system, especially once we have a number of high-level runes built up and at our disposal. I do plan to make a video in the future specifically on this topic. I just want to have a little bit of time actually looking at it in-game and trying to come up with some of the best options. So definitely be on the look for that in the future. Now moving on to meta conditions, and here are what I believe to be 2 of the stronger elements when it comes to dealing with the light cast today. Some combination of these units, within these elements. Now Locke coming into the picture with his slash and peril definitely can make life a little harder for these teams, especially for lightning. Charlotte is definitely more well known for her spirit tanking, and up until now she's been particularly good at dealing with the Jaden Elena teams. And while she can stack some decent enough slash resist, now Locke coming in with that 38% in peril, Charlotte doesn't really have very high base defense to back her up if she were to take a debuff like that, so I think it's going to make life definitely a little harder in terms of Charlotte. The problem for both of these tanks, and really any tank in the game, is going to be the insane slash chaining capability of a team like Locke and Elena, or even in the future Violet from the Persona 5 collaboration. That's going to allow them to ramp up and pull off chains of maybe 6 or 7 hits in a round, and the damage is going to be absolutely crazy and hard for anyone to sustain. The other thing to consider is I believe units like HLL and Ibarra could find themselves having a much harder time hitting these high evade units post 2nd anniversary with the stat stacking that they're going to be capable of. I do believe that a unit like More the Merrier, especially with her own vision card, will still be in a good spot there, and she's definitely going to be a counter to be wary of if you're playing these light evade units. Okay, so you're building up Locke. What else is out there or coming in the short future to keep an eye on? First of all is the ongoing Final Fantasy XIV rerun event. Scions of Shadow with its 35 light attack is great for mixing different damage types together in a light party, or even just doubling up on offensive power. It has that nice dark resist on it as well for protecting against the dark element. The more interesting card though in my view is the Twilights of Shadow card. A couple of weaknesses Locke has in his kit are his negative magic resist and also his lack of any innate slash resist penetration, both of which are effects on this card, so I really do like this one quite a bit. There's also a new permanent pool vision card coming in the short future, This one here picturing both Oberon and Jaden. And this one actually could be a very nice secondary vision card if you paired it up with Elena's vision card as a primary. And you would do that to double up on the luck effect while still retaining near full value from the acquired AP that this card also provides. Now you would give up roughly 9% party luck compared to using something like Secrets of the Heart as a secondary VC, but I think the other effects this card brings would outweigh that. Now next would be Violet from the Persona 5 collaboration, and this is something that should be coming in about 4 to 5 weeks. And this is a unit who's similar to Elena, would definitely form a dynamic 1-2 combo along with Locke, or maybe you could just go crazy and put all three of them in the same party. Now the Violet and Locke tandem was a combo that was very popular on the JP side and was definitely meta for quite a while. They're a very interesting pair in that they both have AP stealing attacks, and that has the potential to cripple the enemy's skill usage if you're able to sort of string off those attacks in succession. Even further down the line, we have some hard counters to watch out for coming into the meta, and that's going to be Astoria here. He has very high damage, area of effect, guaranteed hit in his kit, and he's a strong bruiser with nice slash resist as well. We also have here Joker and Leela, two very high accuracy dark units that will be able to counter Locke very well. Now the last note I have here is the GL Fest unit that was confirmed in the recent live stream, and I'm wondering, are they actually going to try to sell us a solution for Locke and sort of this very powerful light evade meta that has the potential of coming in while Locke is still on banner? Stay tuned, I think we're going to find that out very, very soon. So what's the final verdict on Locke? Now, this is a top tier evade unit, not only from a pure stats perspective, but in that he also has mechanics to back him up in reflex and re-raise, giving him that additional layer of survivability. Oh, he's also packing that amazing evade TMR on top of it as well. Locke is also coming into an absolutely stacked light element, one that's even better on global than what he came into on the JP side. He has a perfect partner already in Elena and her luck VC that she has, and just around the corner is another great partner in Violet and Persona 5. Locke also has access to that Nightblade sub-job as well to help him chain up and provide nice all-around utility to the party. He has that slash imperil that we talked about and his AP siphoning capabilities. From a manual PvP's perspective, this unit has the kit to be a total menace in that mode. This above average mobility, high agility, and top-end accuracy, and also for his multiple ways to steal opponents' AP. For cost-restricted play, Light also has what are in my opinion the best low-cost options to pair him with. Units such as Phoebe, Fina, Engelbert, or even Vistral. On the more negative side though, if built for pure evade, Locke will be in danger of potentially being one-shot, especially from magic damage. We're also seeing more units coming into the game with re-raise dispel, or rule sets which are outright banning that mechanic. And although Locke has very good mobility, his attacks are definitely short to mid-range, mostly in that 3 to 4 range area, which lure him closer to the enemy for side or back attack exposure, or potential AoE danger zones. Locke is also coming into a global meta where opponents are clearly just ready for what he brings. We've had Elena at the top of the meta totem pole for months now, so people are well accustomed to dealing with high-end evade threats, especially in the light element. At the end of the day though, this is just an immensely powerful free unit, and honestly take the free part out of it because he's just strong no matter what way you slice it. He's a unit that I believe everyone should be building, not only because he's from a favorite game of mine, but because I think his kit speaks for itself. We've gone over it here in detail, and I believe he'll have great uses in both PvP and PvE alike. So that's Locke in a nutshell. It's great when a beloved character comes our way and is actually a powerful unit that can leave a lasting impression on the game. I believe that's what they've managed to pull off with all 3 of the Final Fantasy VI units. And this could very well be the strongest overall impact we've seen from a collaboration in quite a while. If Locke were a gacha unit, I would definitely be going ham on his banner and trying to pull him. And as I said, I highly recommend everybody out there build him. And the great thing about that is it's a relatively low investment to do so. As we mentioned, he'll be a free unit for logging in during the collaboration, so I definitely expect to see a lot of this unit going forward. So that's going to wrap up part 1 of this series. I've tried giving just a little more attention and thought into each and every detail, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out a lot, and you'll be notified of my future videos. And that's really all I have to say for today. So as always, stay safe out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one.